36. Calcium cyclamate, which is C6H11NHSO3 is an artificial sweetener used in many countries around the world, but is banned in the United States. Wow. Sorry, calcium cyclamate. Not here. Not up in here, but let's keep going. It can be purified industrially by converting it to the barium salt through a reaction of the acid C6H11NHSO3 with barium carbonate. Then it's going to be treatment with sulfuric acid. Barium sulfate is very insoluble. And then neutralization with calcium hydroxide. Write the balanced equations for these reactions. All right, we got a lot going on here, but the idea here is that we want to make that banned substance, calcium cyclamate, right, in the United States. After this question, I'm going to look this up and see why it's banned. Interesting. But anyway, let's make it, theoretically at least on paper. Now, the first thing it says is that it's going to be converted. We need to convert to the barium salt through the reaction of, we have an acid with barium carbonate. So these two things are going together, and that's the first step. So step one of this whole process is I'm going to take the acid, so I'll just put acid, and I'm going to add it with, generally if you see that word with and you're doing balancing equations, this is addition. So I'm taking that acid and I'm adding it with the barium carbonate. And together, we should make the barium salt. So that's being a little bit general, but we'll see what we can do with that. Okay, let me just pull this out because I definitely need more room for my acid. It's a very, very big acid. Okay, so they told us that the acid was C6H11NHSO3. And remember, when you're dealing with acids, an acid is generally going to be an H plus whatever else is going to be combined with the compound, right? It could just be one element, could be many elements, like in this case. But I see that the last H is lonely, so I'm going to treat this one as the acidic H. So I'm going to color it a different color. But it's still part of the compound. But now this compound is going to be added with barium carbonate. So we first have to find out what barium carbonate is. So let's figure that out. Barium carbonate. Barium. That reminds me of oh my gosh, early 2000s fabulous song. Am I right? I don't know. Anyway, let's figure out what barium carbonate is. So barium is on the periodic table Ba. So that's a metal. So Ba. And when we're trying to make compounds, we need to see those charges. So barium, since it's in group 2 on the periodic table, barium is a +2 charge. Now carbonate, if I tried to look up carbonate on the periodic table, I'm not going to find it. ATE endings, these are your polyatomics. And there's no rhyme or reason as to what carbonate is or what the polyatomics names are. There's some indication, but not 100%. So the easiest way is to just memorize these. All right, guys? So use your flashcards, do whatever you got to do to just make sure that you know what carbonate is, what nitrate is, nitrite, all those polyatomics. It will make chemistry easier. So carbonate, every time that you see carbonate, it's CO3 with a 2- charge. And now, use those charges to crisscross down to figure out how many bariums and how many carbonates you need. And when you crisscross, only take the number. So this +2 tells me that I just need 2 carbonates, and this -2 tells me that I need 2 bariums. However, with ionic compounds, metal and nonmetals, we will simplify. So 2 and 2, I could divide each by 2, and I secretly will only need 1 of each. So that's the barium carbonate. I just need 1 barium, so Ba, and then I just need 1 carbonate, which is CO3. So now let me just maybe make this a little bit better. Let's move this over just so that I have enough room. And now we're going to make the barium salt. And maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to color in the carbonate differently, just so that you can see the separation between the 2 ions. All right. Now, we basically have 2 compounds, right? This is a compound, got a lot of elements, and this is a compound. Remember, the split was down here. We did the hard work already. Whenever you're dealing with 2 compounds, this is always going to be a double displacement or a double replacement. Maybe I'll put replacement. Reaction. And for double replacements, remember, the outers go with the outers and the inners go with the inners. Now, in this case, it's a little bit different because they put that hydrogen on, the right side. Remember, whenever you're dealing with acids, technically the hydrogen should be first. So it would be easier here to just break down what the charges are. Now, the breakdown here is between the H and the rest of the compound. And remember, when you're breaking that down, and maybe I'll put this over here, C6H11NHSO3, and you have that acidic H, and the breakdown is right here. This will break down into the C6H11NHSO3, and then just the hydrogen. But remember, the hydrogen is in group 1. So group 1s, especially if you just have nonmetals, the hydrogen is going to be the +1 charge, which means that this whole thing is going to be the -1 charge. So now, when you're mixing this with BaCO3 with double replacements, generally speaking, outers go with outers, inners go with inners. But for this one, it's always, no matter if you do outers and outers, it's always the new positives go with the new negatives. So if this is the negative and the H is the positive, and when we did the barium carbonate, the barium was the positive and the carbonate was the negative, the positives go with the negatives. So new positives go with new negatives. So they kind of tricked you up here because they put the H on the right-hand side of the acid instead of it being with the left-hand side. But we got this. So this negative goes now with the new positive. This positive goes now with the new negative. All right, so let's go for it. The barium salt. Now we know a little bit more the specifics about the barium salt. The barium salt is going to be between the Ba, and we know that that's a +2 charge, and the salt is the negative component, the whole negative component here, which is C6H11NHSO3, and that was a -1 charge, just like we found out before. So take those charges and crisscross them. You have a +2 for the barium, you have a -1. So this 2 crisscross down to get to a 2. And this 1 crisscrosses down, telling me that I need 1 barium. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this work and put it over here. Because now you have only 1 barium, but you have 2 of this whole thing. And when you have multiple of polyatomics, basically, you need to show parentheses. So we have Ba, one of them, and now we have the C6H11 NHSO3, parentheses, and I have 2 of them. Okay. But now I need to finish up that first step because I need to now combine the H with the CO3. So we did the hard work already. The H is going to be a +1 charge. And maybe I will just do it over here. The H is the +1 charge, and the CO3 is always 2-. So take those charges, crisscross them down. +1 down to the carbonate, telling me I need 1 CO3. The 2 crisscrosses down, telling me that I need 2 hydrogens. So I need H2CO3. But this compound, H2CO3, is a very unstable compound, carbonic acid. And when you make it, you will break this down even further into more stable components. And whenever you see H2CO3, it will always break down into CO2, so carbon dioxide gas. That's the C and 2 oxygens. And you got H2O left over. H2 and 1 more extra oxygen. That's a liquid. These 2 are what you're going to be adding here. So pause the video if you need it. I'm just going to erase all of this work because we need to set up for the next step. So I hate it when my work goes, but I think we're good. All we just have to remember probably is the barium is the +2 charge. So we'll say CO2, gas, plus H2O, liquid. And maybe I'll say that this came from H2CO3. Okay. So now let's get it going. And I'm just going to put up here that the barium was a +2 charge. And the C6H11NHSO3 was a -1 charge. Okay. So I got this and I got this. So now, let's see if this is balanced. Well, we have 2 of these whole things, which technically means that I need to put a 2 in front of the acid in the beginning. Now let's see, I have 2 extra hydrogens. That's 2 hydrogens here. And then I think we're good. We have 1 carbon and 3 oxygens, 1 carbon and 3 oxygens. And now we are balanced. So step 1 is done. Now, step 2 is, let's see. Okay, so we converted it to the barium salt. Check. Now we're going to treat that barium salt with sulfuric acid. So we're going to take the barium salt, because that's the only compound that we care about. So the barium salt, which we already have. So we could just rewrite that, C6H11NHSO3 2, and we're going to add it with sulfuric acid. Okay. And we're going to make, seems like they tell us that barium sulfate is very insoluble. So they're giving us a hint as to the first product, barium sulfate. Okay. So now we just need to figure out what sulfuric acid is. Well, you could either figure this out by knowing that ic acids come from 8s, polyatomics. So if I am having a ic acid, I ate something icky. So sulfuric acid comes from sulfate. And sulfate is SO4 2 minus. It's a polyatomic. And since it's an acid, we know that we have to have that H in the front. And H being a +1 is going to be the acidic component. You can crisscross these charges to get your compound, right? The 1 goes down here telling me that I just need 1 sulfate. The 2 comes down here telling me that I need the 2 hydrogens. So sulfuric acid is always H2SO4. And now we need to find out the barium sulfate. But I see 2 compounds. That's also a double replacement. And the new positives go with the new negatives. Or, in this case, outers with outers, inners with inners. So we have the Ba hooking up with the SO4, and then the H going with the salt. So, let's see. The barium sulfate is coming from the Ba. So maybe I'll put this over here. And remember, we said that barium was a +2. And the sulfate is coming from the sulfate ion, which is SO4 2 minus. Use those charges, crisscross them. +2 crisscrosses down here, telling me that I have 2 sulfates. 2 crisscrosses down, telling me that I have 2 bariums. But remember, you gotta keep them simplified because it's an ionic compound. So I could divide each one by 2. And I now have just 1 barium and 1 sulfate. So this would be Ba and then just SO4. Now we're going to use the rest. And it seems like we're right back to where we left off. I guess. I don't know why we had to do that one step, but I guess they wanted us to do it. So we have the H plus and the C6H11NHSO3. And remember, we said that that was a -1 charge, right? So we have the 1 hydrogen. It's a 1-to-1. So we can just say that it's the H and then C6H11NHSO3. Okay. Now, barium sulfate, they said that it was very insoluble, so this has to be a solid. Sulfuric acid, anything that is sulfuric acid or any strong acid, sulfuric acid is a strong acid, is going to be aqueous. And did they give us any other indications? Not really. We do have the states for H2CO3. Now, barium carbonate, CO3 carbonates on our solubility rules are generally going to be insoluble. Now, barium is no exception. So BaCO3 would be a solid. And they did say that we have an acid here. Generally, if we are dealing with aqueous solutions, we're going to put this as being aqueous. So for your acids, which means that this also would be aqueous because it's the H in the front. And then this one, the barium salt, I'm going to assume that this is also going to be aqueous as well. Okay. Now, the last step is neutralization with the calcium hydroxide. Okay. So let's just pause the video if we need to. Let's get rid of this. Goodbye. And then we got step 3. So neutralization means that you're taking an acid with a base. And from the end of step 2, the acid is the one that has the H in the front. So for sure, we're going to be taking this again. So HC6H11NHSO3. and we're going to be adding it. So this is the acid. We're going to be adding it with the base. And they told us that we're going to neutralize it with calcium hydroxide. That's the base. Calcium hydroxide is a strong base. But we just need to figure out what calcium hydroxide is. Well, we have calcium, which is Ca, and calcium is in group 2, so that's a +2 charge. Now, hydroxide, if you looked on the periodic table for where hydroxide is, you're not going to find it because hydroxide is a polyatomic. Hydroxide is OH with a -1 charge. So, we just have to take those charges, just like we've been doing, crisscross them. The 2 comes down telling me I need 2 hydroxides. The 1 tells me I need 1 calcium. And if you need multiple polyatomics, you got to use those parentheses. So calcium hydroxide is, we'll say Ca parentheses OH2. Okay. So now let's get rid of this. Pause the video if you need it, but it's going bye-bye. I'll just put up here that the calcium is also a +2 charge. And now, even though they said neutralization, I still see 2 compounds. And 2 compounds, even though this is neutralization, is still a double replacement. So 3 double replacements in this one question. It's a question. That's not very nice. But we're getting there. We're almost there. So outers go with outers, inners go with inners. The H plus is going to hook up with the OH minus, and you get the calcium with the whole band substance, which is what we wanted in the beginning. We wanted calcium cyclamate, and that's exactly what it is. So let's try it out. So we got Ca, which is a +2 charge, coming in with the C6H11NHSO3. That was the -1 charge. So crisscross it out. +2 coming down here telling me that you need 2 of those. The -1 tells me I just need the 1 calcium. And if you have multiple polyatomics, you gotta use those parentheses, and it looks very similar to this. So that's the product. I'm just going to pause the video if you need it. I just need to erase this just because I need room to put the product, but it's literally the product of what was at the beginning, Ca, C6H11, NHSO3, 2, and this is the calcium cyclamate. And then we're just taking the H with the OH. But it's neutralization. Neutralization means that you will form, neutralization means that you form water at the end of the day in the liquid form. But we can clearly see it from the H, which is a +1, and the OH, which is a -1. This will be HOH, because 1 and 1, but HOH always gets rewritten as H2O. And that's in the liquid form. And now, we just got to balance. You might have been screaming at me for the past 5 minutes because I am looking back at this. I said, whoa, this isn't balanced. So let's balance it. You have 2 of these, but on the product side, you only got 1. So I do need to put a coefficient in front of here. That's the 2. And now everything is balanced for there. And in this case, looks the same idea. I have 2 of these big things, but on my left-hand side, I only have 1. So I have to put a 2 in front of here. And if now I have 2 H's and 2 OH's, I will form together 2 waters. So I will have to put a 2 in front of there. And now, this is the answer. Oh my goodness. Please. If this earned a subscription or your support, please press the subscribe button and the like button. Oh my goodness, this was crazy. But I really hope that this helped you out. Thank you so much for viewing the video and coming on this long, epic journey of mine to get through this problem. You guys are great. I really hope that this helped, and let me know in the comments. I love talking to you guys, and I think I need to take a break for a little bit. Yeah, man. But I'm glad we got it done. Thank you so much for viewing the video, and I hope you guys have a great day. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.